Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Rhyme and Reason. I am half of your host, Matthew Kearns. To my left or right, I'm not sure how this is going to come out. In the video, I have my other half, Sandy Robinson. How you doing today, Sandy?
Oh, Maddie, I'm doing good, brother. I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. I have been looking forward to this ever since we did the last episode. Which, if you guys haven't seen out there, go and check it out. It's all
Yes.
about Star Trek. It kicks ass. If you're a Star Trek fan, you're not going to want to miss it. But we're going to talk about a different star today, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun with me and you doing it.
Yeah, guys. So if you did not see, our last two-parter was on Star Trek. We had a huge Star Trek discussion. So of course, Sandy and me, being who we are, we decided the only logical conclusion would be the next episode we would have to do is, of course, on The Last Starfighter. Now, we know there's only one movie to talk about, but we feel like we could do a very... no, although The Last Starfighter is a fantastic movie, we're talking about Star Wars. So today, similar to what we did with Star Trek, however, we're not doing TV episodes, we're doing top 5 characters, top 5 lightsaber duels, and finally, top 10 Star Wars movies rankings. Boy, oh, is this going to be crazy. But let's just get this started. So, Sandy, do you want to start with characters or lightsaber duels?
You know what? Let's start with characters. Let's get that one out of the way.
Okay. So we'll do it like we did last episode. So you do your, what do we do? 5 to 3, and
I
then
think so.
2
Yeah.
and 1. Okay, so start with your number 5.
Okay, so my number five, it probably is going to be a surprise to most people, but if you really know me, you know that I'm a big dark side person, and you'll see that when I get to number one. But um, my number five is a character that we didn't get to see, too much in the movies. We got to
Mm-hmm.
see in the Clone Wars, but she was a big character on the
Ooh.
on the actual Clone Wars. TV show, and was a great protagonist throughout that one, and that's Asajj Ventress.
Nice. I
I
thought
love
you were going
Asajj
with a different
Ventress.
character.
Mm, I almost did. These two were pretty close, but for me, it was she is she's awesome. The fact that she can dual wield lightsabers and that's how she chooses it, and her lightsabers are sort of in the same style as Dooku's lightsabers, but she's just vicious. She's vicious. She's mean, but she's smart, and she's not somebody that you want to take lightly. And that's what I loved about the series and the movie. Like Anakin and Obi-Wan and whoever faced her time from time and time, even Dooku, did not take her lightly because they knew that she
No.
was powerful and that she was good. So that's my number five is Asajj Ventress.
That's a great choice. Asajj Ventress is a fantastic villain in Star Wars. Um, I mean, from the Micro series Clone Wars when she started, she had a really great intro in that show. I love that. However, I am not looking for a spy. You wear the trappings of the Sith. You fight like the Sith. Oh, that was. We'll talk when we get to another list. We'll talk about Asajj Ventress and something she does in that series. But yeah, Asajj Ventress. The other thing I like about her is when you get into like season 5. Her character's changed a bit. She's become a bounty hunter. I
Yeah.
I love the last episode of season 4 of Clone Wars when there's that great battle between Obi-Wan and her and Savage Opress and Maul. Oh, it's so
So
great.
good.
Oh, it's
So
awesome.
good.
Yeah, that's a great choice.
Awesome. Okay, so now listen, guys. I'm just going to say this to the world right now. Our lists, they're our lists, and
Mm-hmm.
they're our favorite characters. They may not be yours, and that's what makes the universe awesome, is that you can have your own list and your own list.
Yes.
I picked these characters because they meant something to me at some point in time in my life, and they still do. So my number 4 pick is Chewbacca.
Aw,
I
Chewie.
love Chewbacca. I was always the tallest person growing up. I'm 6'4" now. I was 6'3" when I was in grade 7. So, it's one of those things where he was just the tallest and the coolest, and I was able to do his noise really well when I was younger. And he's such a good sidekick, but main character also. He's fiercely loyal, and I love that. Him and
Yes.
Han, but just not Han. Like he originally in A New Hope, he's all about Han, but he comes to love Leia, Luke, all of like the great the core of of everybody. And then we see in the new series how much he cares for Rey and Finn, and how that is. And so yeah, so that's my number 4 pick is the Wookiee Chewbacca.
That is a fantastic. I love Chewie. He's such a great character for someone who can't speak. You just understand exactly how he's feeling. Man, yeah, I love Chewie. He's awesome. I love Chewie. And similar thing. My one of my best friends in high school, Ryan. We were co-presidents of the Media Art Honor Society. We were co-presidents, and I used to always say that I was Han and he was Chewie because he was a lot taller than me. And so when we stood next to each other, it looked like the size discrepancy between Han and Chewie. So that's a great number 4 choice.
Nice. All right, so my number 3 to 1 are going to be pretty prototypical. But my
Mm.
number 3, it's the order that I care about them in, and I'm going to be very specific. This is not just about a certain group of movies. It's his entire arc over the entirety of all of the things. My number 3 character is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Great choice.
I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. Even like I mean, when you see Alec Guinness show up in A New Hope, when I did, because I watched them, in order of when they came out in the theaters. And when you see him come out there and start talking and sharing his wisdom and his memories with Luke, and trying to, and then everything else that they go through doing that, and then when he passes away, by his choice, by the way, he chose to do what
Yes.
he did. And then Ewan McGregor's portrayal of him throughout the Clone Wars is absolutely
Oh,
fantastic.
it's amazing.
It's so good, and I never I think that he always gets a lumped in with a bad rap because people dislike the prequels so much. But he is fantastic as Obi-Wan Kenobi in there. He literally is exactly what you wanted from him. I love to see him as a younger man, because we got to see his abilities in their prime. When
Yeah.
we just sort of got to see him at the end of his rope in A New Hope. But yeah, for me, Obi-Wan Kenobi is number 3.
That's a really great choice. All right, so now my 5 to 3.
Yeah,
My
okay.
number 5 is hard. I was between two characters. Ultimately, I had to go with my heart. But we'll talk about the other character when we do runners up. So number 5, I have Qui-Gon Jinn. When I was a
Nice.
kid and I first saw Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon was my favorite Star Wars character. When I was younger, I had a really cool, it was like Star Wars like costume kit that had a Qui-Gon lightsaber hilt with like a foam like lightsaber top that you could clip on. When you took it off, the belt actually had like a buckle thing that you could actually clip the lightsaber hilt onto, and it was just the coolest thing. I would run around. There's video of me at my 3rd birthday party that was Phantom Menace themed, running around in my Qui-Gon Jinn costume. Like, I was just obsessed. That when I was a kid, my favorite color was green, was because of Qui-Gon Jinn. Growing
Nice.
up, still, I love Liam Neeson's performance as Qui-Gon. It's strong when it needs to be, but there's a real gentle side to it when he's talking to Anakin. He's very wise. You can tell why Obi-Wan was able to become the Jedi he was, because this was his master. And also when you get to like I know it's not canon, but when you get to a lot of the comics and the books, there's a great series I used to read when I was a kid called Jedi Apprentice, and Qui-Gon was great in that series. There's even a story about an old apprentice of his that turned to the dark side, and it was really cool stuff. And I just, yeah, I wish that Qui-Gon got the respect in the community. I've always been, there's a great video someone did where they put Qui-Gon into the end of Return of the Jedi. Of all the special edition things, I would love that to be added, because Qui-Gon is the reason why all three of those characters are able to do that at the end of the movie. So yeah, Qui-Gon, love that character. Number four,
That's
I have
that.
your number three. Oh, well, yeah, talk about Qui-Gon if you want to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. That's a great pick. I always looked at Qui-Gon because you know me, I'm a huge Phantom Menace fan as well. So Qui-Gon Jinn is everything that old Obi-Wan in A New Hope should have been if the technology was up to date, and it was it was where it was. And you're absolutely right. I think that's exactly what Obi-Wan, like Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan was Qui-Gon Jinn, and because that's where he learned it from. That trying to do it. So no, Qui-Gon's a great pick.
I mean, his death is also my favorite death in Star Wars. It is by far, it's the most well, Obi-Wan's up there as well. Both of them are really heroic, but his is just like, whereas Obi-Wan self-sacrifices in a way that's very like, it's two types of nobles. Qui-Gon, I don't know, there's just the fight to the end kind of thing I like about Qui-Gon's death. But yeah, so at number four, I have your number three pick, which is old Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Nice.
Obi-Wan is such a great character. Until the sequel trilogy came around, he was besides the droids, he was the only character that was in every Star Wars movie. The Emperor was close, except he was only mentioned in A New Hope. But yeah, for the longest time when there was 6 Star Wars films, the droids and Obi-Wan were the only characters to be in all 6.
Yep.
I love seeing when you watch the films, no matter which way you watch the original 6 films, you see him as an old man going to a young man, or a young man going to an old man. I think Alec Guinness is so good as that character. He's, he's just so nice. He's not in the whole film, but he just creates this kind of character that you just sort of latch on to, and that's why he's able to pop up in like 1 or 2 scenes in the next 2 films, because he creates such a strong character that's enough. And then what Ewan McGregor did was so great, because he was able to sort of give Obi-Wan something he didn't have in the original trilogy, which was a character arc. You got to see him as a Padawan go to a Jedi Master, and it was so good. Don't ask me to pick between Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor, because they're both so good for different reasons. But the one thing, there's a great like web like doc thing on Stars.com called Becoming Obi-Wan, that's all about Ewan McGregor, and he just loves his character, and there's a reason why I want a solo Obi-Wan movie with Ewan McGregor, is because he just like, even back in Phantom Menace, like, he just had the beginnings of, like, Alec Guinness. Of course, in Clones and Sith, he got to go a little bit more into it, but, yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You already talked about the awesomeness of him, so I'll move on to my number 3 pick, which is, that smuggler, Han Solo, at number 3. I mean, Han is just such a great... He's such a good character. Once we get into, and maybe we'll talk about this when we get to our rankings, later films, Han is, I have my things, but in A New Hope and Empire, Han is so great. He has such a great arc in those films of just like, at first he's just out for himself. He's just looking out for himself. He doesn't want to help anyone. And then he just slowly grows to care about these people. He grows to care about Luke. That's why he comes back to save him. He He grows to care about Leia. That's why he's going to sacrifice himself for them. Like, he's so... Harrison Ford's my favorite actor of all time, and just the way he plays Han is so, like... It's so believable that his change in A New Hope doesn't feel forced. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, well, of course Han has to come back. Like, you literally feel like, no, he was on the Falcon, he was like, no, I gotta go and help Luke. Like, you just feel it. And, yeah, I mean, Ben and Drew, who do Action Movie and Anime, they did a great episode on Empire Strikes Back, and they brought up a fact that I never thought about, which is, that movie's a little bit more Han's film than it is Luke's. And watching it after the episode, you totally see it, and Han is so good, and he, right off the bat, surface temperature is dropping rapidly. That's right, my friend's out in it. Your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first landmark. Then I'll see you in hell. Like, he's going to go out and possibly freeze to death to save Luke. Like, that's just freaking awesome. I just love Han so much.
Han has one of the best growth arcs in all of Star Wars. Yeah. He's, like you said, he starts out as just somebody who's looking to get some money so he can pay off Jabba, and then I absolutely agree with you, and I agree with Ben and Andrew. I think that absolutely Empire is more Han Solo's movie than it is almost anybody else's. It's more of a Han Vader movie than it is anybody else, and it's his arc in that, his self-sacrifice in that. I mean, the torture scene, where it is so good, and he's so good at the whole thing. And then when he comes back and he's like, they didn't even ask me any questions, and he just says that like that, and then he's so good in Empire. I wish that he'd been on my list. He's not, but he's definitely he would have been 6 on my list. But his arcs is such a good thing to watch.
It was a little bit cooler in my house. I have an Empire Strikes Back replica Han Solo jacket. I would be wearing it right now because I love that character. I'm so glad you brought that torture scene. Because the thing good. I love about that is there's 3 ways to go with that scene, which is one, from Vader's perspective, he's torturing Han because he knows it will generate something in Luke. But then there's also this thing of like how easy it could have been for Han to just say, the rebels are located here. Luke's going to Dagobah, like, da-da-da. But he doesn't. Like, it would have been so easy for him to just try to, like, sell out his friends to save himself. But he doesn't. He'd rather sit there getting tortured. I'm so glad you brought that up.
It's
fantastic.
It's a great scene, yeah. And he's got a great arc. Awesome. Okay, so we're at your...
No, we're at your number 2.
We're at my number 2 now.
Yes.
As a kid growing up, it was tough for me to reconcile that I loved another character so much, because I loved this character almost as much, and it was so hard because they were completely different sides of the same coin. So, but my number 2 pick is in one of my estimations, one of the greatest hero characters that has ever been put to film, and that character is Luke Skywalker.
That's a punt.
Yeah, I figured it would be.
That's a punt.
Yeah, good.
Well, it's okay, because my number 2 character is probably going to be a punt for you, which is Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader.
That's also going to be a punt, so perfect.
Do you want to talk about Vader, Anakin first, or Luke? It's up to you.
Let's do Vader. Let's do Vader, Anakin, and then we can go over to Luke there. So
he's your number 1, so I'll let you go first.
Absolutely. So my number 1 pick is Vader / Anakin. I say what you guys want. I love the character of Anakin Skywalker. I wasn't as big a fan of him as I wasn't as big a fan of the Jake Lloyd portrayal of Anakin when he was little in Phantom Menace. Not because it was a bad performance, just because it didn't really do anything for me.
He didn't get to do much, sadly.
Exactly. He didn't get to do much. He was just sort of there.
Yeah.
and
Until
they
like he gets the pod race and he
yeah
gets the
gets the
end
pod
space
race and then he
battle.
gets the space
But
battle. Yeah,
besides that,
so
he's kind of just standing around with everyone.
exactly. So like my love for Anakin starts in Attack of the Clones and then goes forwards. I understand that people don't like Attack of the Clones because they think he's whiny and stuff like that in that one, but I don't give a shit because you know what? He's a kid. He's a teenager with all of this power and not being able to use it to its full extent. Every one of us would whine about that. Every one of us would complain about that. Luke whined and complained about it,
Mm-hmm.
in the original series. So I mean, like it's Anakin for me is just he's exactly what the movies needed because he goes from somebody who was so good and so willing, and his mom says it, he wants to help you, he needs to help you, he this is what he does, he helps everybody even to the detriment of the rest of
Mm-hmm.
whoever and stuff like that. He'll help without thinking about it, to just the most evil character out there.
Yeah.
And make no bones about it, people, if you read the books and the comics and everything else that comes with it, Vader does some insanely evil shit, and
Yeah.
he's a bad dude
He
until
is.
he gets redeemed at the end by
Mm-hmm.
your number one pick.
Yeah.
So but Vader, when he turns into Vader and he goes up against Obi-Wan on Mustafar, and then throughout his entire arc, Vader is so he's so powerful, and let's not make any bones about it. He almost won that battle, and he
He
had
was
not
this close.
this
If he
close
just wasn't so sure of
caught.
his own power,
Yeah,
he would.
exactly.
He probably could have. It's funny you bring it up because George Lucas talked about the final duel is Anakin's more powerful than Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan's more experienced than
Exactly.
Anakin, and that's why Obi-Wan's able to win.
That was the downfall, is
Mm-hmm.
that Anakin thought that because he had transformed into a Sith and his power had become so much more, that he overcompensated for it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what was eventually his downfall. But was it his downfall? I mean, he lost them something, but he gained something else. He became this menacing, dark figure called Darth Vader,
Yes.
and was able to do so much. And we see in Rogue One. I mean, Rogue One is on my list of favorite movies, but it's
Yeah.
low. It's only on there because of this one last 10-minute scene at the end of that movie, and
Yeah,
it's
well, if you go back to the very first episode of Rhyme and Reason, we both agreed that Rogue One Vader is our favorite Vader.
yep.
Even beyond that I love the scene between him and Krennic.
Oh,
Oh,
so good. He's
did
so
you
good in
come here
that.
to squabble? Oh,
Yep. It's
yeah,
yeah. He's
he's good.
he's my favorite movie character
Mm-hmm.
of all movies. I relate to his struggle. I relate to, we all sometimes just want the power to do what's the best for our family, and sometimes that's not a good thing. And unfortunately, it took him down a very dark path. But now we're going to talk about. Well, let's see. What are your thoughts
Well,
on Anakin Vader?
so as I said with Qui-Gon Jinn when I was a really little kid, Qui-Gon was my favorite. By the time Revenge of the Sith had come out, Anakin had established himself as my favorite. Whenever me and my brother would play Star Wars, he was Obi-Wan, I was Anakin. We were real lucky in that we didn't share the favorite character because I remember you know, I got the Anakin lightsaber. He got the Obi-Wan lightsaber. I always loved Anakin. Again, I'm a prequel generation kid, so I I understand people's hatred of the prequels, and we'll get into this certainly when we talk about the movies. I've always loved Hayden's depiction of the character, even though
Yep.
I really enjoyed Matt Lantern in the Clone Wars. I think both of them are so fantastic. Personally, I'm someone who, if you're splitting Vader and Anakin to two separate characters, I'm one of the minority. I'll take Anakin over Vader personally. Even though I love Vader, he's my favorite screen villain of all time. I'll take Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
that, and again, I'm with you. The Jake Lloyd, I don't hate him, but it's just like Anakin really starts in Attack of the Clones, and there's
Yeah.
so much. There's that. I love the scene when he goes to Tusken Raider camp. I think that's such a. It starts this thing of he wants to keep these people he loves safe, and the anger, and I love the discussion he has with Padme afterwards, where like, he's talking about how he killed them all, and she's like, to be angry is to be human. He says, I'm a Jedi. I know I'm better than this. And you're like, imagine that. Imagine you're just having a regular human. I'm sorry. Some motherfucker kills my mom, and I find him, and I have a lightsaber.
Done.
They're not walking away, okay? I'll be perfectly honest with that, okay? I I know, say in the comments what that says about me, but I'm sorry. I got my Iron Man Civil War moment. Some bitch killed my mom. Like, okay. But imagine that you have a regular human emotion, but because of this upbringing you've had, you think you're supposed to be above that. Because in a way, the Jedi are supposed to be. They're supposed to be the peacekeepers, people better than that. And it's like, he's not. And it's, oh, there's so many great things there. There's a great deleted moment that's in one of the teaser trailers for Attack of the Clones that I wish was left in, which is it's the scene when Obi-Wan, is given the lightsaber and he's like, this weapon is your life. And Anakin goes, I've heard this lesson, I've learned this lesson before, Master. Obi-Wan just goes, you haven't learned anything. And that relationship is so good because you understand that Anakin thinks he's so far ahead that Obi-Wan's holding him back and everything, but Obi-Wan recognizes that, like, he has to keep Anakin on this short leash because if he lets him go, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And then when we get to Revenge of the Sith, I love seeing that he's become at the end of Clones and the beginning of Sith, that's the person who Obi-Wan is talking about in A New Hope, the great pilot, the great warrior. You see that, and then to just see it through just natural things, just like, I can't let what happened to you happen to my mother, like all these things, and it just makes sense. I know a lot of people say that his turn is a little too quick. Personally, I kind of like it. I think, it completely works. Just the fact that, when I see it from the fact that he didn't kill Palpatine. Like, from that scene, he could have easily just slashed him and that be that, but he didn't. But yeah, and then Vader, of course, so menacing, so powerful in the movies, and at the very end, he gets redeemed because he ultimately was good, and he ultimately did everything for good, and that's why I'm okay with him getting redeemed, whereas another masked character in the Star Wars universe I don't think should get redeemed, but maybe we'll talk about that when we talk about that.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about my number one, which is Luke Skywalker, son of Anakin Skywalker. Luke is like Sandy, he is my all-time favorite fictional character. Books, comics, anything, Luke. Similar to why I like Anakin, but just the arc Luke gets to go on of, he starts off as a whiny 20-year-old who wants more, but can't have it, to an empire. He's got this power, he's got this thing, but he still has that young naivete to when we get to Jedi. He's a Jedi Knight, and when you get to the end of that movie, it's so that is my favorite moment in all of Star Wars. Even though it's not my favorite movie, my favorite moment in all of Star Wars will forever be, you failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. It's the ultimate middle finger moment in movies, and it's Luke willing to die. Like, he's not going to become the apprentice to Sidious. Like, he's going to stand with no lightsaber, ready. Mark Fernandez talked about this on Rule of Two, which is, what Luke does in Jedi is directly related to what he saw Obi-Wan do in A New Hope. This whole idea of self-sacrifice. You can't fight evil with evil. And that's why when we get to the later films, what they ended up doing with Luke, I'm not too big a fan of, because we'll get to this when we talk about The Last Jedi for sure, but just that depiction of Luke just... And I'm not trying to be one of these hashtag not my Lukes, but just to me, it just doesn't make sense for who that character was to do this. To me, I don't see Luke as a character who would run away from his friends when they're in this darkest moment and just hide away from everyone. I can't see the character who left in the middle of his training with Yoda because he had to save his friends, and who threw his lightsaber away and stood up to the Emperor and was willing to die to show his father that there's still good in him. I don't see that character running from his friends. That's just me. If you like that depiction of Luke, that's your opinion. And again, this is just mine. I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm not saying you're wrong, because there is no. My favorite depiction of Anakin, me and Sandy talked about this off air a couple times. My favorite Luke is Empire Strikes Back Luke. My favorite Anakin is Attack of the Clones. I'm not right, you're not, no one's right and wrong, but it's just, for me, Luke in A New Hope to Jedi is the Luke I love. The one that we've got in the sequel trilogy, at this point, I'm not a fan of, personally. But Sandy, what are your thoughts on Luke?
I'm just going to touch right off where I'll get into why I love Luke so much, but I'll touch on that. I think that you're absolutely right. Everybody has their own reasons for liking whoever they like, right? And that's one of the best things about Star Wars and being a fan, is that we all have this opportunity. I look at the Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi as Obi-Wan Kenobi at the end of Revenge of the Sith. He knows that if he stays out in the public eye, somebody's either going to come and try to kill him, or he's going to hurt the people that he cares about. So he goes off into exile. And I think that that's Luke's vision too, is that he knows that Snoke is, is wants him and wants to try to think. And I think that because of what happened with Kylo, and that it left Luke in a really vulnerable spot where he didn't want to be used. So he went away. Now we can talk. We'll talk about Last Jedi later and stuff like that. But Luke Skywalker, for me, you hit on all the great points. You see him come from just a farm boy who knows nothing about his past because he's been lied to his entire life by his uncle and his aunt. And, he had this one chance meeting with two droids and then another chance meeting, with Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's his arc. I said before that I love the Han Solo's arc. I love the Luke Skywalker arc all the way through the first trilogy. For him to go from where he was kind of whiny and kind of cocky and kind of annoying in A New Hope to the Empire Luke, where he's even more cocky because he's got all these new skills and he thinks that he can defeat Vader, and he's not quite sure of himself yet, and he's right on that precipice of like he could fall to the dark side or he could stay on the good side. And Yoda knows this when he's training him. Ben knows this when he's trying to convince him to stay, before he goes to help his friends. But you're absolutely right. Luke Skywalker is that person that above any other, he will go and help his friends and do what needs to be done, even if it means his own life. And and that's at the core of his being. And then we see him again in Return of the Jedi. Shows up, no lightsaber, tries to talk Jabba, beats a Rancor without a lightsaber, without really using the Force that much at all. And then one of my absolute favorite scenes in all of Star Trek is in Star Wars, is just this. And then
salute,
off, bounce,
lightsaber,
whoo, flip, catch the lightsaber, and it turns green, and you're just like, oh, what the hell, a green lightsaber? And as somebody who watched, like I said, the movies in order that they came in the theater, never seen another color lightsaber other than red, right? So you're sitting there going, green? What? They make a green one? That's awesome. And so I think that if you were putting a list of heroes together and you were literally just like a hero and what a hero belongs, Luke Skywalker, out of all of moviedom, it's got to be in the top 5 heroes of all time. So he's a fantastic pick.
The American Film Institute would not agree with us. Couldn't even get on his top 50. What are you doing, AFI?
Yeah, I know. They're a little wacko. But anyway, It's yeah.
We
Go,
kid the AFI.
we do. Absolutely. Well, hey, listen, because of the AFI, I was able to like learn a lot about other movies that I didn't necessarily have a chance for. So thank you, AFI.
Yeah.
But
Luke
yeah,
Skywalker still should have
Luke's
been on your list.
absolutely,
All right.
100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there we go. Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker. Both of us have them in opposite order, but they're no less important to the Star Wars franchise.
Literally the same thing that happened with Star Trek. Same
Yep,
top two characters, differing order.
you got it.
So, do you have any runner-up characters you want to touch on?
Well, we touched on it earlier. Han Solo is definitely a character that is definitely in my honorable mentions. Princess and General Leia are both great
Mm-hmm.
characters that I didn't put on here. I just don't think that as much as she's interwoven with the story, she's always just been a peripheral character to me.
Sadly.
She's sort of there. She's important. She's absolutely important. She has some great lines and great moments, but
She gets a lot to do, but the story is never quite about her, if that makes
exactly.
sense. Like, that's the only issue. Is the story is she's never quite the central figure in a way. Still
Yeah.
on my honorable mentions as well.
Absolutely. I think somebody that doesn't get a lot of credit because of where he was in the Star Wars universe is Christopher Lee as Count Dooku. I think his performance is fantastic. Ian McDermott as the Emperor is fantastic. And I'm gonna give a great shout out to two Jedis that I think were that should be on this list if it was longer. Yoda and Mace Windu are
Great
pretty
choices.
kick-ass characters. So yeah, those would be my honorable mentions that I just wanted to bring up and say good job, guys.
My honorable mentions: Princess General Leia. I also had Poe Dameron. He's probably my favorite character in the sequel trilogy. I think he's a different character from what we've seen in Star Wars. He has a little bit of Han and Luke in him, but he's his own thing. I really like Oscar Isaac's portrayal.
Yeah.
Darth Maul, number 2 Sith. Number 2 villain in Star Wars 2 Vader. So good in the Clone Wars. I love the stuff with him and Pre Vizsla in season 5. It's so great.
Good.
Also from the Clone Wars, Captain Rex. Such a great character. Good. So many moments in that show of just pure heroics. Like just, I'll fight to my last breath to save the Republic. Like so freaking awesome. And then I love the fact that Dave Filoni confirmed that he's in Return of the Jedi.
I know.
So he gets to make it, and now when I watch Jedi, I'm a little bit happier seeing the bearded rebel because I know it's Rex. I'm so much happier.
And just to take just a quick second here, I think all the clone characters that we see during the Clone Wars, during the TV shows, all the clone characters that they introduce to us are fantastic.
Heavy, they're one of my favorite Star Wars characters as well. He's only in 2 episodes. I love Heavy so much.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, Cody was great. When you watch Clone Wars and then you watch Sith, what happens between Cody and Obi-Wan is so much. Oh, it's so much harder to watch.
So much harder.
You've seen the friendship. Oh, it's so hard. And then the one that could have been on my top 5, but Jyn Erso. We'll talk about Rogue One. I love Jyn Erso's character so much. She has a similar thing to Han. I like how she's kind of just out for her own good. Like she just wants to find her father. She wants to just get free and just go back to doing what she was doing, and then by the end of the film, she's willing to die in order to get the Death Star plans to the Alliance, and it's such a great arc, and she's a great lead in that movie. I love Jyn Erso's character so much.
Yeah, she's great in that movie. She definitely brings that recklessness of Han Solo, but that sacrifice of a Skywalker. And yeah, like by the end of that, she's got what I loved about her so much was that she had like no fear almost. It was like, whatever happens, it's just gonna happen, and I'm not gonna stop, and you're gonna have to stop me to do it. So great choice.
Krennic on the bridge is
so good.
So good.
So good.
Yeah, so that is our top 5 Star Wars characters and runners-up. We're now going to go into top 5 lightsaber duels. Now, mind you, even though a lot of these might be from movies, the way me and Sandy talked about this can be from anything. Comics, games, anything. So this should be a really interesting list. Sandy, what's your number 5?
So I will be flat out honest. All of my picks are from the movies,
All except one.
All except for one. And
imagine if we have the same one that's not from a movie.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be so sweet.
And it wouldn't surprise me at all. So my number 5 pick is Anakin Obi-Wan versus Dooku in Sith.
Okay.
I absolutely love this fight. Even though Obi-Wan gets knocked out of it relatively early in the fight, it's still that beginning. It's like it's still the beginning of when they walk in there. He reminds Anakin.
Your
he's like,
swords, please. You don't want to make a mess of things in front of the Chancellor.
That's right.
We'll do it together.
That's right. That's what I was about to say. That and then that little brevity in there, with just that little bit. You know what? I'm still your teacher, and all right, I'm still learning, but I've learned, and then it starts out so good, and they fight, and then it ends up just being Anakin versus Dooku, and the line that Anakin lays on Dooku with my powers have doubled since the last time, and he almost beat him the last time.
That's right.
Dooku's got to be sitting there in his head
twice
going,
the pride, double the fall.
Twice the fall. And that's so typical Sith and so typical Dooku not to show his hands or anything like that. But, well, no pun intended. Haha. But, and then how that fight ends, and, it's so manipulative because you can the Emperor, like, do it. He just pulls out that total Emperor voice, and it's not Palpatine at that point. It's Sidious, and it's like, do it.
It's so good, and I love that moment when Anakin and Dooku cross sabers. You have great fear, you Skywalker. You have hate, you have anger, but you don't use them. Because Vader literally says similar stuff to Luke in Empire, and it's so I love the connections that George Lucas made between the trilogies through stuff like the lightsaber duels. That's a great pick. I love that duel a lot. It was I think it was a great duel to start Revenge of the Sith off with. I think it sets it sets the type of movie that you're going to be in. It establishes Anakin and where he's going to go, and great choice.
Well, and you see how close Anakin and Obi-Wan are, right at the beginning. How great a pilot he is when they're trying to, fighting through that whole thing, and then they get onto the ship, and it just, it's such. The opening of Sith is so great, but we'll talk about that, I think. But that's my number 5 pick, Anakin Obi-Wan versus Dooku, in Revenge of the Sith. My number 4 is Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
I really like this fight because it's Luke at as a Jedi. Like, it's Luke as a Jedi. Like, he went, like, if you go back to Empire, he rushed into that fight a little bit. He was a little cocky in that fight, and Vader was kind of toying with him the whole time. But in this fight, like, there was legit skill on both sides, and Vader knew he was in for a fight, and that's why he had to resort to using Luke didn't want to fight his father because he knew it was his father at this point, but he knew that he had to do something, and Vader knew he had to do something because he was gonna look bad in front of the Emperor. So to use Leia and just to piss Luke off, and then you get that just unbridled rage out of Luke, and Vader just barely being able to keep up, and that just shows you just how good Vader is to be able to deflect, and then the 3-4 slashes, and then the O slash, and then the chop of the arm down. And then you're right, that lightsaber fight doesn't end there. I love it when you good, and then he throws the lightsaber away, because Luke, out of every single person that uses the Force other than Qui-Gon Jinn, Luke understands that it's not what you do with the Force, it's about the Force. Mm-hmm. It's not what weapons you have that you're using against a bad person. It's the Force envelops you, it binds you, it creates, everything that you need to do. And that's why he had no problem throwing his lightsaber away, going, no, I'm a Jedi like my father was before me. I'm somebody with the Force, and you can't change that. No matter what you do, you can kill me, but it's not going to change the fact that you didn't win. And so that whole lightsaber battle, right from the beginning to the end of it, is so good.
You hit the nail on the head there. That's the whole thing about that is if Luke kills Vader, the Emperor wins. If Luke kills the Emperor, like if he throws his lightsaber and kills him, Emperor wins. If Luke dies, the Emperor doesn't win because it proves that this is going to be an odd comparison, but it's a lot like the discussion between Joker and Batman in The Dark Knight, where it's when the two boats don't blow each other up. It's a similar thing of just like, this city just showed you that's full of people, right, and good. Like that, the Emperor was not prepared for that. He was prepared for either Luke to kill him or kill Vader. He wasn't prepared for Luke to sacrifice himself, because it proves that the Jedi aren't dead. It proves that these Guardians of Peace who were protectors, who looked for the good in people and were there to ensure the galaxy was safe, are not dead, no matter how little of them there are left in the universe. Yeah, it's a great duel. It's probably might be the best choreographed,
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, it's funny. Mark Hamill talks about his fights in Empire and Jedi, and he talks about how George Lucas was at the time. He was very like, two hands on the lightsaber. Only once in a while he could do one hand. Like it was very like Excalibur, like Robin Hood, Adventures of Robin type of fighting. And Mark Hamill talks about when he finally did the prequels, he was like, we could have done stuff like that or so. Which if you see, there's video of Mark Hamill practicing with that lightsaber, doing the whole. It's pretty freaking sweet. He was really good with that lightsaber. Yeah, that's
absolutely.
A great choice.
Nice. Okay, so my number 3 pick is once again probably going to surprise a lot of people, but it shouldn't if you just listen to my top 5 of the characters there. My number 3 is from the Clone Wars, and it is Anakin versus Ventress.
Wait, are you talking about the micro series?
We are talking about the micro series.
That is my number 3.
Nice.
That is my number 3 lightsaber duel.
I absolutely love the fight between Ventress and Anakin in the micro series. It is so good. It's where it's so long, and it's so long too for something that's so short in time. It's such a long duel, and it's so good, and it's so vicious, and it's so like there's just.
And we see the beginnings of Vader at the end of that duel. We really I love the beginning, just like so I'm going to make you pay for what you've done. Come, Padawan, your fall will be my ascension to the Sith. And they just fly at each other.
It's bashing into each other.
It's the first time we ever see lightsabers in the rain, which is so cool when they're sort of just and the rain starts to hit. I love how both of them, as the fight goes on, their clothes just get more and more ripped. I like the moment when Anakin kind of force pushes Ventress, and she kind of like sneaks away, and he goes into the cave, and with the ring, just very good sound work, you get the hints of the Vader breathing. You get the, and then just the, and then just. Anakin just wailing on her when I love the moment when he loses his lightsaber. He's holding both, forces up the lightsaber, and then he just unleashes. Ventress, the look on her face, she does not expect this, and just the wailing, and you see the shadow images of Yoda and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and just It's such a great duel. People don't talk about it as much as they should. It because it's animation, you're able to do so much more than you could in movies. Like all the stuff when they're jumping the trees and it's so freaking cool. I love
Yeah.
this duel so much.
It's the you hit it. It's the setting. It's the environment that they're in. It's the rain. It's the bashing of their clothes. Or they're ripped and torn, and Anakin's practically wearing no shirt by the end of it. It's such a great fight. I'm so glad that it's your number
Yeah.
3 too. So it's fantastic. So
Yeah.
all right, so let's start. Let's hear your 4 and 5.
So my 5 is Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Count Dooku, but from episode 2, not episode 3. I
Nice.
like the episode 2 one a little bit more, which I know I'm not really that big of a fan of the Yoda duel, and that's not because I'm one of these people who Yoda shouldn't have a lightsaber, because I quite like the duel he has with Palpatine in episode 3.
Mm.
I just think there was a little bit too much going on in the episode 2 one. They were a little bit too focused on how would Yoda fight. Well, he has to do all these flips, and it's just a little too much. I just love the stuff when Dooku's fighting Obi-Wan and Anakin. When they first run in, you're going to pay for a Jedi they killed today, Dooku. You take him slowly together, you take him left. No, I'm taking him now. And then it's just, as you see my Jedi powers, I'll fall beyond yours. Now, back down. And then just as they're fighting, Obi-Wan he's been beat because he was just captured, and then he fought in the arena battle, and just like he's being down, but he still is fighting, and Dooku is just playing with him, just Master Yoda. Oh, I'm trying to remember the line now. It's oh man, what's the line when he's fighting Obi-Wan? It's just like
Oh, it's something. I can't remember it either.
Master
I'm not.
Yoda held you in such high regard. Surely, something like that. Surely you could do
Yeah.
better. And it's like, and Obi-Wan gets freaking like pissed in that moment. Not as pissed as he gets in another one, but just like and then Obi-Wan gets slashed, and then you think it's over, and Anakin just jumps, and oh my god, just the badass moment of just brave of you, boy, but I thought you would have learned your lesson. I am a slow learner. And then just throwing the lightsaber, and Anakin's fighting with that dual lightsabers, and then he slashes the thing, and the lights are going
turns the lights
out,
so
and then
good.
it's just oh my god. I the one thing I'm upset about is Nick Gillard talked about that the lightsaber duel between Anakin and Dooku was supposed to be a little bit longer. Because people talk about there is a weird edit where Anakin and Dooku are like on top of Obi-Wan, but then when Obi-Wan throws the lightsaber, they're like far away. That's because the fight with the solo green lightsaber of Anakin and Dooku was supposed to go on for a little bit before Obi-Wan threw in the lightsaber, which I'm just upset about because I love this lightsaber duel so much. I would have loved to have seen it go on for a little bit longer. But yeah, I love this duel so much. It's so great. I watched this on YouTube so many times. It's just such a great. When I watched the movie on Blu-ray on my big TV with the surround sound, it's so great just seeing this lightsaber duel happen. I love it. My number 4 is probably going to be a punt, but it is Anakin versus Obi-Wan from Revenge of the Sith.
Punt.
Yeah, punt. Okay, so what's your number 2?
So my number 2 might also be a punt, but I don't think it will be. Maybe it will. My number 2 is Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Anakin, or Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon in Phantom Menace. So, okay, guys, listen seriously with this. It is. I mean. As a person who grew up with Star Wars, like from 77 and 80 and 83, I watched them all in the theaters, and it was the greatest thing a kid could ever watch. It was so fantastic. But I always wondered, because I would see comics and I would see this thing where they were doing fantastic lightsaber stuff, and I was like, man, why didn't we see that in the movies? Well, guess what? that is what the Phantom Menace gave us, was this lightsaber. The Jedi that we always heard about, that they were the guardians of the, guardians of the galaxies for for over thousands of years. But we only saw the basics with Luke because, he was the only one left, and he didn't have anybody really other than, Yoda and Obi-Wan to train him a little bit. But we get to see lightsaber wielders in their absolute prime here. And Darth Maul comes up, and he just dun dun when we hear the Duel of Fates from John Williams, and and then that door slides open, and you see Darth Maul hold up his lightsaber, and the one side comes out, and then the other side comes out. And it's just, and then you see Obi-Wan will take care of this, and they pull off their robes, and they ignite their lightsabers, and they go at it. It is such a long fight, but it's so good. And Darth Maul is so, I'm so happy you had him on your, on your character list, because it's just, as an honorable, because it's so good. And even though he doesn't last a long time in the movies, we all know that he lasts a long, long time in the rest of the extended universe. So, this fight is so good from Obi-Wan's sacrifice, or from Qui-Gon's sacrifice to Obi-Wan's rage and his ability to use the Force and to recenter himself, to jump out of the hole and grab Qui-Gon's lightsaber and take care of Darth Maul. The whole fight is so good. It's so choreographed so well that it looks natural. It doesn't look like it's something that's been practiced a lot. It was like, get in there, bang, bang, bang. It's so fast and so good. I love this fight. It's so fantastic, and I'm so pleased that it's your number 2 as well.
It could easily be my number 1. And therefore on that fast, that wasn't sped up. Like, Ben Burtt didn't speed that up. That was all Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, and Ray Park doing that. That was they just practiced, and I love that you said that, the prime of the Jedi. This is just the prime example of the Jedi, and it's just, I love the moments of just like when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon just start to commune with the Force, and they fake Maul out because it looks like Obi-Wan's gonna go, and then Qui-Gon goes. It's so, and then Obi-Wan gets separated from Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon keeps going, and then it's the only time in the movies when we really see Obi-Wan's rage. It's a very similar moment to what Luke does in Jedi, where it's just that rage comes out, and it's so great. It's man, this Ewan McGregor and Ray Park. Just if you watch any of the behind the scenes stuff, they just were probably the two best. I'll say I think they're probably the two best people to ever do the lightsaber dueling. Just if you watch these behind the scenes stuff, just they're probably, Hayden's probably up there. Mark for the original trilogy is probably, Mark is definitely the best in the original trilogy, that's for certain. But like the two of them, just that duel they have where it's just them on their own is so awesome. And there's so much, I hate when people say like, oh well, you don't care about the characters. Maybe you don't. I care about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon in that movie. I give a shit about them, so I really do care, because when Obi-Wan's hanging over there and you think he could slip and fall, and then he has to just do exactly what his master said at the beginning of the movie, is just, believe in the living Force, and he's just able to feel the lightsaber and just cut Maul down. It's awesome.
Well, and it's not, and it's also about Maul too, right? Is that that failure of the Sith, and we see that throughout the entire series. Darth Vader gets cocky, and loses. He tries to pull the string. Cocky. Maul sitting there, Obi-Wan's hanging by this little ball of whatever, and he's all he's doing is making sparks with his lightsaber.
Maul could easily force push Obi-Wan, but he's not, because he likes hitting the sparks and playing with Obi-Wan.
Exactly.
He likes playing with him, and that's what his downfall is because he was so cocky, went, there's no way this Jedi is getting away. I'm just gonna play with him for a little bit. It's awesome.
And he alludes to it earlier in the movie when Sidious is talking to him, and he's like, finally we get to reveal ourselves to the Jedi.
Last
like he has and he has no fear, right? He's like it's like he doesn't respect the Jedi at all, and you get that because he's a Sith, but he doesn't. Like, at least with Sidious, at least he respects his opponents enough that he's
great. When you look at Sidious and Dooku as Sith, you can tell when they're fighting like Obi-Wan and everything. Like, even if they're playing with them, there is that respect level of, you know, two warriors coming at each other. Whereas Maul is just like, especially with Obi-Wan, it's just like, who's this child trying to face me? Like, I'm glad that you brought that. I never really thought about that. That is really true. The Jedi are just a bug on his foot that he just needs to dispose of. And you can tell he's been waiting to dispose of it for a while.
Well, and you can tell, like, other than Dooku, you can tell the Sith way is to, like, pump up your guy. Like, we see that with Ventress. Ventress, like, has no fear, and she thinks she's the best of all time. Maul, the same thing. Savage, you know, also, you know, they all think that they're just unbeatable because their masters are doing that to them. They're pumping them up. They're making them that great. And it eventually is the downfall of all of them, right? So, no, it's, that fight is fantastic. It's so good. I watch it all the time.
Yeah, same here.
All right.
So do you want to do your number one first? Or do you want me to do mine?
Let's do yours.
All right, so my number one is Luke vs. Vader from Empire.
All right, good fight.
This could easily be the best choreographed in the original trilogy. It really does. No offense to the Ben Kenobi Vader one. I like this duel because it has great choreography, but it's really a character battle. It's really Luke goes into the battle going, you're the guy that killed my father. You're the guy that killed Obi-Wan. I need to stop you. And Vader's going, I'm bringing you to the Emperor. I'm just going to have fun with you before I do it. And it's just... and that's when they first get there, but when Luke kicks Vader off of the... he kicks Vader off of the carbonite freezing chamber. The next time Vader and him meet in Cloud City, he's like, okay, you were a joke, but now I'm just going to take you down. I'm sorry, that moment when after Luke's falling out of the window, he's just walking so quiet, and Vader just comes out of nowhere. It's a horror film. And Luke's able to get the one good hit on Vader's shoulder, and then Vader just slices his hand, and it's so great. I love, again, we talked about this with the Asajj Ventress Anakin. I love how beat up you see Luke get. You see his costume getting torn. You see him get bloodied, and but he's not giving up. And then, of course, like with the Jedi one, it doesn't end when the duel's over, and he finds out Vader's his father, but the ultimate moment, top 3 Luke Skywalker moments of all time will forever be, join me, we can rule the galaxy together as father and son, come with me. It is the only way. Looks at Vader, looks down, just drops, just says, no, there is another way. And he doesn't know he's going to hit the weather vane. He's willing to die at that moment. He doesn't know he's going to hit the weather vane and survive and nope, he's going, all right, nope, this is it. I'm going to die. And I love that duel so much.
It's one of the greatest story duels that you'll ever see in Star Trek or in Star Wars. It's so good right from the beginning, like when Luke first pops up and he's like, and Vader's like, and then all of a sudden you hear the, and then he looks up and he's like, you've learned much, but you are not a Jedi yet. You'll find I'm full of surprises, and he's doing so good, and then Vader just is done toying with him. Yeah. He's just done toying with him, and you're right. It's a horror movie. It's Jason Voorhees coming out of behind a tree and slashing down. It's like bang, 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 and then he proves that, hey, listen, you know what? I'm not just a bad guy with a lightsaber. I'm the bad guy with the Force that can use it better than you. And he just starts. Winging stuff at
Luke, and Luke's he's barely able to knock some of the stuff back. It's so good.
And then yeah, like Luke gets that, that one, and give it up to Luke. Like give it up to Luke. He is
Oh, he's
beaten.
fighting to the end there. He's not
He's
giving
beaten.
up.
He's not giving up though. He's like
Like I said,
he's
he
down on
gets that
the
one really good hit on
hits
Vader's
up,
shoulder.
and that just pisses Vader off more. And you hear that, and he cuts through that metal, and then yeah, it's like slash slash, and then the hand goes off, and then it's all over. And then yeah, the one choice, and then like you said, like give it up to Luke. He learned from his masters. He learned from Obi-Wan, who learned from Qui-Gon that sometimes to do the right thing, you've got to sacrifice, and you don't want to fall in the hands of these guys because they will turn you. And if you're as powerful as Darth Vader says you are, you definitely don't want him to bring you in front of the Emperor because you're not at your full power right now, and it could be bad. So what do? You jump off, and whatever happens, and yeah, it ends up, it ends up going the right way. But it's such a good duel from the start to finish. It's definitely was one of my honorable mentions for these fights. But yeah, absolutely, no question, one of the most fantastic things ever.
All right, let's talk about your number one, which was
So
my
my,
number four for
which was
everyone.
your number four, exactly. So my number one is probably, in my opinion, one of the best choreographed fight scenes of all time. It is so good. It is so, I use this word a lot. It's so vicious and aggressive. And even Obi-Wan is, he knows he's fighting for his life. And it is Obi-Wan versus Anakin / Darth Vader before he's all roboticed up in Revenge of the Sith. It is such a long fight, and there's so many differences to this fight. They fight in the control room, and they're smashing each other around, and they're using force pushes and lightsaber pushes, and Anakin is running from places and jumping, and it's so good. Like Obi-Wan seems to get the upper hand, and then all of a sudden there's Anakin's lightsaber in his back, and he's blocking shots and back on the offensive, and there's one scene where you see Luke, or you see Anakin just sort of like get that deep look in his face, and he just walks forward, and he's like got purpose, and he's like walking towards Obi-Wan, and he's just gonna start slashing away.
And that's where you get dual fates. You get the little bit of dual fates at the
exactly. Exactly, and then they start fighting, within the lava, and what ends up happening at the end. Save whatever you want about how that fight ends and stuff like that. It is what it is. But the actual fight itself, like the lightsaber on lightsaber, is such a good fight. It is, like I said, it is just above Maul versus Anakin or Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, as just a pure what Jedis and what Sith in their absolute prime can do. So it's for me, it's the best lightsaber duel.
It's so good, and the thing I like about it too is that it does what a lot of the great lightsaber duels, which is the talking. I really like, how,
Underrated.
my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. Not with me, you're my enemy. I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you. Should have known the Jedi were planning to take over. I love that stuff, and you're right. I don't care that it's long. It is so great. It's so in the Battle of Heroes is my favorite John Williams piece of Star Wars music ever. It's so powerful in this. The visuals, I love this lights. I remember seeing it on the big screen. It was so cool. And then me and my brother reenacted this with our lightsabers several times. We would always the one thing we always loved to do was there's a great moment which is such a great visual moment when Anakin and Obi-Wan sort of grab each other by the arms and the giant lava pops up. We would do that so much. We would call it, we would do like the Anakin and Obi-Wan. We'd be like, okay, we'd be fighting, and we would go, and we would like hold it for a bit. We used to do that a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, I love this duel so much. It's Nick Gillard needs to be applauded for he took what the original stunt coordinator, who sadly I can't remember his name, he took what he did in the original trilogy and just ran with it and just took it to the prime of the Jedi and sort of was like, so that's what we get when we get half machine, half man, and an older man and a guy who's learning from young people fight. Let's do what all those people in their prime, how would they fight? And it's so great. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime, and it's so, and just for you people out there that are listening to this and have different opinions on where your lightsaber duels and stuff like that go, all the lightsaber duels are awesome. Anytime
Yeah.
you get lightsaber on lightsaber action, it is great.
And they're
So
all great for different. Again,
different
I love
reasons.
Obi-Wan and I love Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Maul for different reasons. I like Luke versus Vader. I like
Yeah,
the Maul one for more choreographed visual, but then I like Luke Vader for more story. Like, there's so many ways. Again, I don't really have honorable mentions, but like one of my favorites has always been Galen Merrick versus Vader from Force Unleashed. I've always loved that duel. I think again that one is a really great story duel. Yeah, that's really the only honorable mention I can think of. I also like Grievous versus
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan. I
Yeah,
wish the lightsaber portion of the duel lasted a little bit longer. That's my only issue with that, but I still really enjoy that one.
that was that.
Any honorable
Yeah,
mentions for you?
that was one of mine. Obi-Wan Grievous. I think that there's also a couple of Grievous fights in the micro series that are pretty kick-ass
Yeah.
that are in there. But the only one that I'll bring up is from the Clone Wars TV show, Savage Opress and Asajj Ventress versus Dooku.
Ooh.
Is a really great fight, and it's awesome.
To
So yeah,
hop off of that one, Sidious versus Maul versus
Maul.
Oprah. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
great. He pulls out the tool lightsaber. That's a great one. But
Yep.
now we're going to get into the big discussion, which is top 10 Star Wars movies.
Continued in part 2.